So in the last session you have seen how to create a single node cluster, and in this session I'm going to specify how to create a multi-node cluster. You can run the command k3d cluster list to see the list of cluster that you have created so far using k3d. So I already have a cluster running, and the name of the cluster, I did not specify any name, but by it auto generated some name. But if I want, I can specify a name for the cluster that I want to create for sure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to execute this command. I'm going to create a new cluster, but this time it's going to be a multi-node cluster. Right now, I can run the command kubectl get nodes. There's only one node in the current cluster that I am working on. And if you want to check which cluster you are currently working on, right now anyway there's only one cluster, but using kubectl, this is the command you can run to see the context that you are currently working on. Right now there's only one cluster, that is where you are working on, and we already created a port nginx port. We already created a nginx port inside this cluster. All looking good. So now I'm going to create a new cluster. Right, now I'm going to create a new cluster, and this new cluster that I am going to create, I already have a cluster that I created, and inside the cluster by default there's only one node cluster. It's a single node cluster that I have created, and now I want to create a cluster that would contain 4 nodes, 2 master nodes and 2 worker nodes. That's my plan. So this new cluster that I am going to create, it is going to contain 4 nodes, and then yes, of course, whatever containers that you create inside, these are the actual machines which run these containers. But yeah, remember, these are not real machines. These are Docker containers. That's what k3d is all about. K3d uses Docker containers to run the Kubernetes cluster. Yes, containers inside containers. The nginx container that you created is actually inside this Docker container. Technically that's what it is, but you don't care. You don't really care, because k3d simplify all these things. You can completely forget about the machines, whether they are containers or real. You can focus on kubectl and working on the cluster using YAML. And right now the cluster that you created is a single node cluster, but in production you might have multi-node clusters, and you might want to do a whole bunch of testing on multi-node clusters. So a developer wishes to create a cluster that contains more than one nodes. So let's see what you can do using k3d. Now I'm going to create a second cluster. I already created this cluster. Now I am going to create a second cluster using this command kubectl. Kubectl cluster create, and then I can mention the name of the cluster that I am creating. So I mentioned k3d multi-node, that's the name I am giving. Then I can mention surveys equal to 2, or whatever number that you want to give, agents equal to 2. So I'm going to create a cluster, and this time I am giving some name. Last time I did not give any name, it auto generated some name, and this time I am manually passing some name. And then I mention I want total 4 nodes in the cluster, 2 control plane nodes and 2 worker nodes. Surveys is nothing but the control plane nodes, agents is nothing but the worker node, and when it comes to k3d, that is what it call it, just surveys and agents. So just go ahead and run this command. Sorry, it's not kubectl, it's k3d. And as soon as the k3d cluster get created, it would generate all the necessary certificate for kubectl, and kubectl will automatically start talking to this cluster. Even last time also we did not did any kubectl specific configuration. As soon as the cluster is created, kubectl start working on that cluster. So same case will happen here also. So let me run this command and let me create a second cluster, this time with 4 nodes in it. So you can see it's basically creating the nodes, and it's creating the cluster. It's creating 2 server nodes right now, starting the 2 server nodes, and then a bunch of nodes server node and cluster nodes got created already. Now they are being started. It won't take much time. It hardly takes less than 1 minute to create a cluster, and that is the best thing about k3d. It's lightweight and it's very very fast right now. So it's done. The cluster is ready, and now we can run this command. There is a command called k3d clusters list. Then it would show you all the clusters that you currently cluster list. Sorry, it's not clusters. It's k3d cluster list. Then it would show me all the clusters that you currently have. So there are 2 surveys and 2 agents, and all of them are seems to be in the running state. Everything looks good and perfect. And then I can now run the command kubectl. So now I have 2 clusters. So which cluster right now kubectl will be speaking with? Is it the default cluster, single node cluster, or the multi-node cluster? You will have this doubt always when you work on your laptop. So just run this command to confirm at a given time which cluster kubectl is speaking to. Run this command config get context on kubectl. Then you can see all the clusters as context in the list, and there is multi-node context and there is default context. This is the old cluster and this is the new multi-node cluster, and star button indicate which cluster kubectl is speaking to right now. So right now kubectl is speaking to this cluster, and I can run the command kubectl get nodes. So I already know there are 4 machines or 4 nodes forming this cluster, and I should see 4 in the output. Yes, there is 4, and 2 of them are taking care of the control plane roles, and 2 of them are nothing but the worker nodes. So total 4 nodes in this cluster, and any containers are running inside the cluster. We can run the command get ports. It will show you all the ports that are currently running in the given cluster, and right now obviously we have not created anything, so that's why it is showing us empty. So let me go ahead and create a cluster, create a pod inside this cluster by running kubectl apply command. I already have an nginx pod YAML file configuration. So now I am creating a new pod inside the new cluster. So you can now go to, so an nginx pod got created in the new cluster, and the old cluster also I already have created this pod. So now you have seen how you can create multiple clusters in your laptop itself. Yes, currently I am using an AWS machine, but I strongly recommend you that you use your laptop, MacBook or Windows, whatever operating system that you use to run these softwares. You can run a k3d cluster locally very very easily. So you can just use your laptop, and many developer today uses this methodology. They develop some application and they want a local Kubernetes cluster where they want to run the application which they are developing for the testing purpose, right? So always it's best if developer has a local Kubernetes cluster within their laptop, and Kubernetes k3d is widely used for this purpose to run some workload in the developer laptop itself. And k3d is actually a very good project, lightweight, and it does not take a lot of memory and CPU. So it is best for laptops. It is best for IoT devices also. I mean, the lightweight IoT devices can also run k3d clusters. It's that much lightweight, right? So that's what it is, and most of your lab environment k3d will work, right? Whether you want a single node cluster or multi-node cluster, you can create using k3d. And most of the Kubernetes resources that you create in Kubernetes, you can create them in a K3s cluster also. So most of your lab environment will work with k3d. Okay, great.